Welcome, everybody, to the Problem Solving Generation. Here with Jaime Casap from Google, Google's Chief Education Evangelist. It's my pleasure to welcome you all today. Selametvia, Здравствуйте. Unfortunately, I only speak English and Spanish and some Arabic. I wish I could facilitate this in Russian or Kazakh, but thank you for joining us nevertheless. And we're glad to have you here today. This event is open to young professionals, high school students, and college students from throughout Kazakhstan. We're so delighted to welcome you to this important topic, to look at what the next generation faces when it comes to digitalization and the future of global work, especially what the important skills are coming out of this global pandemic. And as a representative of Narxoz University, it's really my pleasure to have this conversation on behalf of Narxoz with you all. As you know, Narxoz University has been a leader in higher education in Kazakhstan since the 1960s, and we're moving into an era of the university where we are really focusing on preparing all of our students and our community for the global workforce. So today we look to having a really great conversation. Please put your questions and comments into the comments bar on the right, and we will answer them throughout the session today. We will also have this recording available for you on our YouTube page to share with others after we're done. So in case you don't know who I am, my name is Katie Curiel. I am Narxoz's Globalization Advisor, and I'm also a senior lecturer in the business school and our Futures and Foresight Institute. I come to Kazakhstan with 2 decades of experience in global education and global development experience. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States, and also from Washington, D.C. So I've been in Kazakhstan for a little less than a year. I used to work with Bolshak scholars back at Arizona State University, which is where I first found out about Kazakhstan and Bolshak scholars and all of the amazing parts of Kazakhstan. So it's been a pleasure to move out here and experience Central Asia and the amazing culture and life that is here in Kazakhstan. I've really experienced both the opportunities and the challenges that Kazakhstan has, especially for the youth. So today I wanted to bring Jaime to you to talk a little bit about the challenges and opportunities that are presented for you right now, especially in the pandemic. With that being said, I want to introduce Jaime Casap to you. So as you know, he's the Chief Education Evangelist at Google. What that means is he's an expert in education, digitalization, innovation, Generation Z, and the future of work around the world, which is really what he's going to talk to you about today. So it's really my pleasure to introduce Jaime, and please, again, keep involved throughout the discussion, ask your questions, comment, and we want this to be a great discussion today. So without any further delay, Jaime, please welcome to the stage.
Katie, thank you very much. Here's a cactus for you. Do you miss Arizona?
Oh yeah, I definitely miss Arizona.
So welcome to my studio here in Phoenix, Arizona. As Katie mentioned, I'm the Chief Education Evangelist at Google. I want to give you, this is kind of what I want to lay out just over the next 15, 20 minutes tops, is I want to give you a little bit about my background, and I want to talk about digitalization, why it's important, what does it mean, and then discuss what are the skills that you need in that world. All right. And then as I'm speaking and you have questions, jot them down, put them in the chat box. I don't know if you guys are using the Q&A section, but in any way that you can, get your questions down, and then we'll spend the rest of the time answering questions. Okay. All right. So I've been at Google now for 14 years. Back in 2006, I was meeting with Arizona State University. I had just started at Google, and we were trying to solve a problem for ASU. And the problem was that their email system was old and antiquated. They were using a system that was from the mid 1990s, and students weren't using the email platform. And that was an issue for them. So we had this crazy idea about launching Google for Your Domain as their platform. And back in 2006, if you're using Gmail at that point was only 2 years old. And we had just lifted the invite only. So we had just getting started with Gmail. Arizona State University said, yeah, let's give this a shot. And then the next thing you know, we launched Google Apps for Education at universities around the world. I really got into the whole idea of the role of technology in education because it was a new space for the most part back in 2006. So I joined a team. And when I say team, it was just two of us. That started working with universities around the world. A couple years later, year and a half later, I had this crazy idea around launching these tools that we now call G Suite, which includes Gmail, Docs, presentation, sheets, those things. Launching those into K-12, because in K-12, in primary, secondary education, there wasn't a lot of technology use in that space. So we gave it a shot. And obviously it was successful. And today we have close to 100 million users using these tools around the world. But the craziest idea I had at Google came a couple of years later when I saw this device called the Chromebook. And Chromebooks were not designed for education. But I convinced the team that we should give it a shot in education, and the rest is history, right? So it was two of us that went on the road for 6 months and launched Chromebooks into education. So my job at Google has always been to kind of think about what's next, to think about the role that technology plays in education. But my passion has nothing to do with technology. My passion is for education. And the reason why is because I'm a student, or I was a student, that needed education the most. I grew up in poverty. I grew up with a single mother. I grew up on social services. I grew up in a very violent community. And for students like me growing up in those circumstances, the only way that you could get out of that environment was either through some kind of sports scholarship or through education. And so I believe that there's opportunity, no matter what your background, no matter where you come from, if you can focus on education, you can accomplish anything. And I hope that I'm proof of that. And this is true around the world. A great education leads to great ideas, which lead to working hard, leads to a successful career. And I hope that's what we can create for millions of students around the world. So that's my focus, is on education. Now, let's talk about digitalization. We now live in a digitalized economy. And by digitalization, I mean everything that has to do with technology, artificial intelligence, machine learning, AR, VR, automation, robotics, the whole thing, all of it. And I get to travel around the world. Well, now I don't get to travel around the world. I get to Zoom around the world. But I get to travel around the world and listen to what the issues are from educators, from business leaders, from students. And everyone is building solutions and solving problems using digitalization as one of the components. It's not always the only component, but it's definitely one of the component. The point is you can't solve problems without considering digitalization. And we are at the very, 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 very beginning of this. We are just getting started. And I'll give you an example as to how I know we're just getting started. If you think about quantum computing, and I'm not going to get into definitions of quantum computing, but if you want something to do tomorrow, spend the day researching quantum computing. It's fascinating. But if you think of quantum computing, which is what's in the future, which was what's next, Google had a breakthrough about 3 months ago. And the breakthrough is this. If you took a math calculation, an equation, and fed it to a supercomputer, the most complicated math equation you can come up with, and you fed that calculation to a supercomputer to process, it would take the world's most powerful supercomputer 10,000 years to process that equation. The breakthrough that Google had in quantum computing is that we were able to do it in 300 seconds. So obviously this was not done, on a MacBook. It was through giant rooms of computing and giant rooms of quantum physics and all these other things that were happening. And the point though is 10,000 years versus 300 seconds. Imagine what is in between those two numbers. That's where we are today. Everything is going to involve digitalization. And the language for digitalization is computer science. Computer science is what will drive all of this. Everything that I just mentioned is based on the basics of computer science. Now, I'm not saying that everyone needs to go out and become a computer scientist, although the world needs a lot of computer scientists. The world needs a lot of data science people. The world needs a lot of cybersecurity people, but that's not what I'm trying to say here. What I'm saying is that you need to understand computer science so that you know what you can do with it. You know what kind of solutions you can create. And this is why that's important. I'm sitting right now in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And if the problem that I was trying to solve was to get from downtown Phoenix to the airport, and I didn't know that cars existed, what kinds of solutions would I come up with? I can spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of math, a lot of resources coming up with great solutions that get me from here to the airport. I can come up with a great walking plan. I can come up with what time I need to leave, how long it's going to take me, what my pace should be. Some great formulas. I can come up with a great solution to get me from downtown Phoenix to the airport by walking. But if I don't know cars exist, am I coming up with the best solution? And that's why we need to understand digitalization, computational thinking, data design, all these concepts of what we need to understand so that we can create solutions for the future. Now, that's on the machine side. That's the computing side. Now look at this world and what we're going through from a business perspective. Imagine you are a business owner and your business is going through this pandemic, and it doesn't matter which business it is. What is your number one risk? What has this pandemic exposed? And the number one risk from a business perspective is humans. The cost of doing business relies on the human capacity and capability to do the work. So naturally, as a business owner, what you're going to try to do is limit that risk as much as possible. So as fast as you thought automation and robotics was coming at you before, imagine what it's going to be like in the future. We're talking about hockey stick growth when it comes to automation and robotics, and it's already taking place. If you think about essential workers during this pandemic, grocery store workers are essential workers. Yet, as we can say that they're essential workers, they're also being replaced almost at the same time. In Singapore, I just read an article that supermarkets in Singapore are just using self-checkout robotic stations to check grocery store people out. So it's going to get faster and faster and faster. And so worrying about that isn't what we should do, because this has always been happening. Automation, robotics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, these things in one regard or another have always been part of our life. It's just going to happen even faster than it was happening before the pandemic. So what does that mean to you? Well, what that means is that you should be focusing on the human skills. The machine skills are being taken care of. What you should be doing is focusing on the human skills. And this list of skills we've been talking about for a very long time. Problem solving, collaboration, the ability to learn, creativity, and critical thinking, or some kind of combination like that. This list we've been calling 21st century skills, and never really stopping to consider that we are 20 years into the 21st century. And therefore, these skills are critical right now. These are the most important things you can focus on, because these are the things that machines can't do well yet, and in some regard might never be able to do. One of my favorite terms in technology is artificial intelligence, because it's such an ironic term, because there's no intelligence at all compared to the human brain. If you did the power of an artificial intelligent chip versus the human brain, where the human brain is like a 1/100,000th of that artificial intelligent brain. The combinations and processes and ideas and creativity of the human mind, we're nowhere near trying to replicate that with machines. So that's what we need to focus on, those skills. And I want to bring up a few of them, two of them actually. They're all important, but what the pandemic has shown is that 2 or 3 of these have risen to the top in terms of importance. And the first one is the ability to learn. Now, I'm not saying that you should know how to take tests or how to outline a book or take notes in class. I'm not talking about learning in the school definition. I'm talking about self-awareness, an idea that you don't know how to do something. You know that, you learn how to do it, you know where to learn how to do it, and then you're able to assess whether you learn how to do it. It's a mind shift. It's considering this idea that you can always get better. And that changes everything as far as I'm concerned, because it moves conversations along, especially the ones in your head. For example, how many people out there right now would say, I'm not very creative. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at finance. And in reality, the answer is you've chosen not to be creative, and you've chosen not to be good at math, because everything that you need to be good at math and be creative is out there for you to learn. The world is at your fingertips for the most part, and I know that there are rural areas that don't have bandwidth or internet access, and that's a temporary problem as we move technology forward. But you also have to understand that only half the world is online right now. But if you are online, you have the world at your fingertips, and I don't think anyone is taking advantage of that. What can you use to learn what you don't know? And then how do you know you did it? For example, personally, I launched my YouTube channel a year ago and knew absolutely zero about videography or editing, nothing. And in a year, I taught myself how to do this. And I can watch my progression, watching my videos, everything from the beginning where it's all dark and fuzzy and not in focus to what I'm creating now with multiple camera angles and lights and better sound. You get better at things. So the idea is you never say, I'm not good at videography. You say, I need to learn videography. That's the skill that we need, this ability to learn, because as technology moves faster and faster, you're going to have to keep learning. And the problem is that we've told students around the world, we've convinced them that education is a process. It's something that you go through. You are educated, you are in education, you are at this grade level, and then you are done being educated. The reality is education has to be a mindset. It has to be constant and continuous improvement in terms of learning. I remember when I graduated from graduate school saying, I am done learning. That wasn't true 25 years ago, and it's certainly not true today. So, focusing on your ability to learn is critical. The second one I want to highlight, because of that, it's directly tied, is critical thinking. And specifically around critical thinking, digital skills. And this ties to digitalization and the ability to learn. Most students who are using the internet and using the resources are terrible at it. We've been giving you and students a pass. We told you that you were just born with the technology around, so you just know how to use it. We told you that you are digital natives, and we've been lying to you. You are terrible at digital skills. I see study after study after study where high school students and college students and young professionals can't point out a fake story when presented one story among 4 or 5. I've seen that same age categories not be able to find an easily found research because it doesn't show up on the first page of a Google result. You need to up your game on digital skills so that you know how to use the tools that are available to you, that you know how to vet, how to research, how to look for information, that you know what's credible, what isn't credible, how to go through sources, how to dig deep. Because if you think about it, as you think about problem solving, if you're solving a problem and someone else is solving a problem and you both type in the same problem into a Google search bar and you both get the same answers, then why do I need you if someone else is solving it using that methodology? You have to know how to dig deeper. You need to know how to have a perspective. You need to know how to get into the space and understand what's happening. Now, The most important thing to focus on based on the skills and what you need is problem solving, which is what we wanted to talk about today. And problem solving involves understanding what problem you want to solve. Don't worry about what you want to be when you grow up. That doesn't matter. The question you should ask yourself is, what problem do you want to solve? What problem spins in your head? And then the second question is, how do you want to solve that problem? How do you want to take your gifts and your talents to solve that problem? And then the third thing you need to think about is, what do you need to learn to solve that problem? What are the knowledge, skills, and abilities you need to master to solve that problem? And how can you start developing those knowledge, skills, and abilities based on all the world's information that's available to you? How do you start building your skills? How do you start building your knowledge base to solve that problem? So if you can focus on those skills while thinking about the role of digitalization, that will get you very far. So Katie, I'll pause there.
All right, thank you, Jaime. So that was very interesting. I mean, you brought up a lot of important points, right? We're moving into what a lot of people call are the fourth industrial revolution, which is all about big technology. And in Kazakhstan, as we know, it's the strongest economy in the former Soviet Union. It's the strongest economy in the Central Asian countries. However, we've identified that there are still some major issues that are preventing Kazakhstan from really achieving its larger vision and its larger abilities. And what we call human resources, human capital, are really what is the most important part that is missing right now. And the government of Kazakhstan has created the National Vision 2030, and human capital and human growth are at the center of that, right? Which means education is really important right now. The future of the youth in Kazakhstan are very important. And the government has identified with leading experts like the World Bank and others that when students are graduating from high school and college, they're highly employed, but when they go to work, they're missing the skills that they really need, as you mentioned, right? But in addition to these high-tech skills, they're also missing some basic skills like, how to manage meetings, how to correspond correctly in a professional manner, how to manage projects, those kind of things. So what would you recommend are some skills that you think any of these students need when graduating from high school into college to both help them take advantage and do their best during their college years? And also in Kazakhstan, the students have to have many internships, actually. I think most of them have about 5 shorter term internships by the time they graduate. So they get a lot of different work experience. So what kind of skills do you think the high school students and younger college students, as well as our young professionals, should be developing right now?
Yeah, so those are great questions. And I think the answer is that you develop them as you go. And this is what I mean. Let's say, back to this model of problem solving. Let's say that the problem you wanted to solve, and by the way, it doesn't have to be a big social problem. The problem could be making cars go faster, making better microphones, making better lights. But let's say the problem that you wanted to solve was climate change. And then if you went to an adult, or you went to somebody in authority, or you went to an educator or a teacher, and you said, the problem that I want to solve is climate change, they might tell you, oh, you need to be a scientist. You need to be a researcher. you need to be a STEM student. Yes, there's many ways to solve climate change on that path. But what you need to think about is how you want to solve that problem. And what I mean by that is you need to know yourself enough to know what your passions are, what your talents are, what your gifts are. For example, I'm a photographer. If it's not my profession, although I wish it was, I like photography. And if I was a talented photographer and I was young and I just had an unbelievable eye and I was a great storyteller with a camera, the way I can solve climate change is by going out and documenting climate change. I can go out and create awareness around climate change. I can go out and create movements around climate change with the stories that I can tell. So let's say I discover that I want to solve climate change, but I want to do it as a person who documents and talks about climate change. Now, what do I need to know to do that? Well, obviously, you need to become an expert in climate change. So you will need to take science classes and study climate change, especially if you are interested in like coastal erosion, for example. You need to dive deep into knowing those things. At the same time, you need to continue improving your photography skills. Now, all of a sudden, you can see the skills that you need on both tracks. And it helps you think about what kinds of roles you take. For example, let's say you wanted to be a world-renowned photographer and blogger about climate change. Well, writing is an essential component of that. So being a better writer. Let's say that the only way you can do all this is through networking. Well, networking is a skill you need, so you can become a better networker. Now, once you identify the skills that you need, and I think in education, our job is to help students identify what those skills are that you'll need, then you can start developing those skills if you have the digital skills to be able to do that. Now, in the case of climate change and being a writer, then any job that comes up first that helps you build those skills is a good job. You've got to understand that I've been at Google for 14 years. And when I graduated high school, when I graduated college, when I graduated graduate school, Google didn't exist. So there was no way for me to prepare to get a job somewhere. I was developing skills that when Google started, my skills fit within what Google needed. And so if you wanted to be a climate change blogger or writer or documenter or photographer, then if a job showed up in transportation and it was a writing job where you would have to write a newsletter or you would have to write communications, you can identify, yeah, that's the skill that I need. I'm going to go take that role so I can get better at it. Even if it's not aligned with exactly your industry or what you want to do, you have to focus on skills that you're developing. But once you identify the skills that you need, and that's the most important part, learning those skills is going to rely on your digital capabilities. For example, no one knows how to network. Young people do not know how to network, how to reach out on LinkedIn, how to start communications, how to create what I call mutual value to the person you're reaching out to. I made 2 videos on my YouTube channel on how to network better on LinkedIn. That's just 2 videos of thousands of videos and papers and research on how to be a good networker. So saying that you're not a good networker shouldn't exist. Saying that you don't know how to network and learning how to network and then being able to determine if you've become a good networker is available to you. Same thing with working from home. Here in the US and across the world, people have gone from working in offices to now working from home. And they don't know how to do this. It's a skill, believe it or not, working from home. Months ago, before the pandemic, I made a video on strategies and ideas on how to work from home. That's one video of thousands of videos and papers and research on how to effectively work from home. So everything that you need to know is out there. What you need to know, to Katie's point, is identifying the skills that you need. Once you do that, then you can learn those skills in lots of different ways.
Thank you, Jaime. Yes, you're right on. And I just want to reiterate to all of our viewers, the high school students, the college students, that you can't wait for educators to do it for you. We definitely empower you and inform you in the classroom. But as Jaime said, there are all these resources online. So you really need to position yourself for what's coming ahead that we don't even know exists. And as Jaime mentioned, Google didn't exist when he was at your stage in your development in your education career. And with Kazakhstan, you know, when I work with students and I speak with students, they all say, well, why should I think about solving problems if all that I can do is go maybe work in a petroleum oil company, go work in one of the big four. There aren't many opportunities to be passionate. And if you create a startup, you'll face many challenges with bureaucracies and whatnot. But the truth is, globally, as Jaime has mentioned, things are changing with technology. Globalization is bringing us together. So Kazakhstan is changing and will change. And you all are really the leaders of that. No matter what, you will be needed to change things moving forward. So prepare yourselves now to take what Jaime has said and be ready when that opportunity comes knocking at your door, right? And that leads me to we have a question from Akbar. He's a bachelor's student in Kazakhstan. And he says, most people in Kazakhstan have to just get a job to pay the bills instead of being passionate. So he wants to know how you think in those kind of in those kind of countries or economies that youth can actually be problem solvers and have the problem solving mindset.
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's not just Kazakhstan. That is everywhere, right? In the United States, for example, the majority of people work for paychecks. And what we're suffering through here in the United States clearly shows that if that's all you do, then you're really hanging on to something. You're hanging on to a thin string, because we're going through major employment issues now because of the pandemic. So the great thing about digitalization is that it's created what I call a long tail economy. What does that mean? Well, a long tail economy means that you can be very nichey. You can find a specific thing that you're passionate about or curious about and figure out ways to make a living from it. For example, when I was your age and I wanted to start a business, I was living in New York. For me to start a business, I would have to have capital. I would have to have a storefront. So I had to lease space. And in New York, you can't lease a space unless you have the first 6 months of rent money. I would have to have inventory for my store. I would have to have cash on hand. I'd have to have employees. And the inventory that I did have, I would have to understand or estimate what number of things people need and what is the general kind of things that people need in my community. That's what I would have to do. Today, you can start a business with a laptop, and you can find the things that you're passionate about and focus specifically on that. I'll give you a crazy example. And I hate to admit this in public, but I love flat earthers. If you don't know what flat earth is, that you're going to go down a rabbit hole. But I love flat earth. I love the people. I love their theories. I watch their videos. I am in love with the whole concept of flat earthers, a group of people who believe that the earth is flat. Now, let's say I was a t-shirt designer. Let's say I was a fantastic t-shirt designer. I just got an idea. I can design t-shirts, sell them through one of the sites where you can customize and make your own t-shirts. And I know exactly where flat earthers are. I know exactly where to target them. I know what videos they watch. I know exactly what Instagram channels they're on. I know exactly what Facebook groups they're part of. I can be very niche and sell my 1999 banging flat earth t-shirts to a very specific audience. I could probably start that tomorrow and make 40, 50,000 US dollars a year selling flat earth t-shirts. And then the flat earth t-shirts turn into tote bags and then stickers and then a whole bunch of things. And now I have a flat earth company. And I don't want a flat earth company. I'm just using that as an example. But I have to be passionate about it. And that's the difference, is if you just start a business to make money, if you go to work just for money, that's not going to satisfy your internal drive. Because at the end of the day, all of us, all human beings, no matter the country, are motivated by the same three things, whether we realize it or not: purpose, autonomy, and mastery. Those are the things that motivate all of us. Having a purpose, having autonomy to do it the way you want to do it, and having mastery, being good at it. That's what drives all of us. And if you just work for a paycheck and you're not happy, well, what's going to happen is you're not going to be very engaged with the work that you do. And yeah, there is a way to do that. And there are people who just want a job because they want money, because their real love is playing golf or flying airplanes or building models. But again, I bet you that if you give me enough time, instead of just having a miserable job, I can find time. I can find a way to make money building models, flying airplanes, stamp collection, whatever it is, you can find a revenue stream to be able to do that.
Yeah, and you know, Jaime, I would say in my experience with Kazakhstanis that the youth of Kazakhstan have so much going for them. It's such a multicultural country. You talking to everyone watching, you all are extremely diverse ethnically, linguistically, geographically, spiritually, and that's a very unique combination that many places in the world don't have, right? And so I think that you should be proud to be Kazakhstani and think of all the ways that you can inspire the world and solve problems, right? And we think about different industries around the world that when we think of, for example, leather, we think of Morocco or Italy with its fashion and France with its fashion and design. And we think of Silicon Valley in the US with its tech innovation. So think about what can you bring as a Kazakhstani to the world stage and to Central Asia and to Kazakhstan, for sure. So on that note, we have a burning question. It's the big elephant in the room that many people are asking about. We have Olesia, a high school student, asking this question. We have Arujan, an alumnus, a young professional, asking this question. So they basically want your advice, Jaime, on how to stay strong and be successful when the world is not having success, essentially. So when things are going on around you in your external environment, maybe in your country or your world, such as the current global pandemic, how should they respond to be successful? And specifically, a few people here and another person, Aslan, are worried about the large unemployment rates that are facing Kazakhstan right now. And specifically, not only because of the pandemic, but because the value of the tenge, the national currency in Kazakhstan decreased like 20% because of the issues with the oil battle between different countries. So
Right.
Kazakhstan faces a few more challenges than other countries do. So what do you think they can do right now to kind of ride the wave of the tsunami?
Yeah, and then that's a global question, right? That is something that's happening across and at different levels in different situations, and it all depends on government support. It depends on how businesses react. So here, just yesterday in the United States, I heard that airline industries believe that it will take between 3 and 5 years to get to where they were 2 months ago before the pandemic started. And on September 1st, it looks like they're going to have to let go 100,000 airline employees, right? So this is an issue across the world. And again, it goes back to this idea of having a job versus having a passion. Now, one of the questions that I get all the time is how did I make it through what I had to go through in my life to get to where I am today, which is, wasn't the most wasn't the greatest situation. And the two things that I reflect back on that I think are the most powerful for me, number one is I am a dysfunctional optimist, right? I believe that things are going to happen, right? I am just everything is glass half full to me. And there are times when glasses half empty. My family thinks sometimes I'm a pessimist, and that happens. But overall, I see the potential in things. And I think that that's a mind shift. That's a way to think about the world. So for every crisis that happens, there is opportunity. So your job is to identify what that opportunity is, and you can start seeing it already. For example, I saw an ad on Instagram where it was like a key-shaped brass ring that helps you touch things without having to use your fingers, right? That tool probably will sell well. That's a crisis creating an opportunity. So what are the opportunities? So for example, one of the things that I see as an opportunity for me is to work with universities who are going to be redefining what higher education looks like and to use my expertise to help them through that. So what are the opportunities? So look at it optimistically, not in terms of, oh no, everything is falling down and the world is ending, which is fine to have that attitude every once in a while, but to purposely work on being an optimist. And again, there's lots of resources out there, exercises that you can do to be more optimistic, to have a better mindset. So for me, I'm an optimist. And so I see everything in front of us as opportunity. The second thing that has got me to where I am today is I have a really bad case of reality distortion field. And reality distortion field means that whatever I'm presented, I still believe what I believe. So if you said to me as a high school student, kids like you don't go to college and definitely don't graduate from college. If you look at the statistics of students of color living in ghettos in New York City during the 70s and 80s, there's probably a 1 to 2% chance of graduating from college. And I looked at that and said, those are great odds. I'm in. And so that's what I focused on. I have a reality distortion field. And sometimes, most of the time, it works out for me. So another one, and this is real time, when I launched my YouTube channel a year ago, I said to my wife, I'm going to have 1 million subscribers. And she rolled her eyeballs at me. This isn't a goal. This isn't like dream big. This is really in my head what I believe. And then it's just a question of getting there. And so those two things, having a reality distortion field, remember, you can't let other people drive your thoughts. Everything that's ever been successful has had negativity and naysayers, right? So for example, let's go back. When Thomas Edison invented electricity, he couldn't convince business owners to switch from steam engines to electricity. Thomas Edison believed that the whole world would be powered through electricity, reality distortion field. And business leaders were saying, nope, not going to happen. That's stupid. I'm going to stick to my steam engines. And even 10 years later, he couldn't convince businesses that electricity was the way to go, because the 4% of companies in New York that he was able to convince were not getting good results. And so those business leaders were saying, see, it doesn't work. It's not good. You're wasting your time. You're wasting resources. It's a bad idea, and so forth and so on. It took 50 years for electricity to catch on. We can go from there all the way to the modern Elon Musk and his idea that you can create a global electric car company. Is he successful yet? No, but he's on that reality distortion path. Steve Jobs had a reality distortion vision. Anyone who's ever succeeded has to have reality distortion field, because you have to believe that it's true. Sports stars, Michael Jordan has had reality distortion field. He just believed he was going to win the championship. It wasn't like an optimistic view. It wasn't a goal. He just literally believed it. And so having a reality distortion field and being optimistic can bring you a long way.
I couldn't have said it better. You know, there's more and more research coming out that says, that proves the old saying that you are what you believe, right? And you are what you do. And so it's been proven time and time again by recent research that literally our minds can change everything that happens in our lives. So we have a question, it's a similar question from Dilnara, who's a college student, and from Bota, a high school student. And they're saying that they're considering for the fall, because the economy has been so damaged in Kazakhstan, their families are facing really bad economic pressures. So they're thinking of not going to college in the fall. The high school student is thinking to not continue with her goals of higher education just yet. And the other student is thinking of just not returning right now because they need to work. So they want to know your advice. Should they do that? What do you recommend?
That's a tough one, right? Because every situation is unique and different. So what I would say in that circumstance is that you need to look at your needs, your pyramid of needs, and figure out where you are. For example, if you are someone who has to make money to survive and live and eat and have shelter, then you should find a way to do that and then use the rest of your time to build your skills through online classes or through reading, through lots of different ways that you can do that. You know, one of the videos on my YouTube channel is this idea of not being busy. Everyone likes to pretend that they're busy. Everyone says, oh, you must be very busy. Or people say, I'm busy. I'm very, very busy. Because I think we think that being busy means you're important. And people say that to me all the time. You're busy. You must be so busy. And my response is like, no, if I can watch Netflix, I'm not that busy. So you have time. You have time to focus on the things that you're passionate about. For me, I work all day, and then I go and play with my 5-year-old, and then we have family dinner, and then I spend time with my wife, although she doesn't like that, but I do it anyway. And then I have 2 hours of my time where I could either sit on the couch and binge watch a show, or I can use that time to focus on something that I want to focus on. So it's about balancing your time. And the great thing about having a passion and the great thing about being purposeful about the work that you do is that once you identify that, it's not work anymore. right? Like, and I know this is going to sound cliche, but I dread Fridays. I get depressed on Fridays because I love my work week so much, and I love doing this, and I love being engaged with students, and I love writing, and I love making my videos, and I love, and then the weekend comes, and now I have to hang out with people I might not want to hang out with, or I have to go out to dinners that I don't want to go to. I have to be social, right? So for me, my passion drives the work that I do, but it's not work. It's not work for me. It's about choice. It's about what would I spend this half an hour doing? So again, if that's not a driver, if it's not a basic necessity kind of driver, you should do that and then use the time that you do have to keep building your skills. And that's why it's important to identify what those skills are. I know tons of people who work full-time jobs and then use the rest of their time to get their online degree or build their skills. Or they find a job inside the industry that they want to work in, no matter how low the job is, right? So if you're passionate about, for example, climate change, and you want to keep studying that and getting better at that, and you can find a low level sweeping the rugs at a nonprofit focused on climate change, go do that work. If you are someone who wants to be a writer and you found a job, you know, writing text for a taxi company, go do that job. In other words, find the thing that you're passionate about and then find work in that space if you can. If you can't, then build the skills that you know you're going to need for the thing that you're passionate about. Now, if money is not an issue, and sometimes that's true, then I would continue to focus on my education. And at the same time, I would focus on building your skills, because you can potentially do both. And so, you know, I had someone in my network, a student who attends Arizona, University of Arizona. And this student reached out to me. This is, you know, high level, you know, 4.0 grade point average, you know, extra achiever student in my network that I connected with a couple of years ago. And he says that his internship was taken away, right? They closed down his internship. And he was panicking because he was looking for a new internship, and he wanted to know if I had any ideas on what internship he can do. And so my response back to him was, look, if you're living at home with your parents, and money is not an object, and money is not the reason why you want the internship, because what you want to do is build skills, then start a company. Just start something. And it doesn't matter how it ends up. The experience of that goes a long way. Being able to look at a resume and say, I started a company this summer and fell on my face and I was miserable and I had a miserable experience, but these are the things that I learned, is so much better on a resume than I worked at this company and got coffee for a manager. And I didn't know how this student would respond. And his response was, oh, I have like 3 really good ideas that I've always wanted to explore. Sometimes students need permission to go out and do what they're passionate about. And again, in crises, there's opportunities. And if there are no jobs, then what an opportunity to go out and start something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'd say in my experience in Kazakhstan, the jobs you're going to get are just going to be able to pay the bills. But when you go into higher education, that's when you can really explore your passions and you can create more opportunity for you. You can build those networks, as Jaime is saying. So we're at the end of our time. I'm going to end with one last question that a couple people have asked. We have Alan, Guka, and Christina. So they're pretty much all asking which majors or which degrees they should follow to have better success in life. And Alan asks, is business or politics better? Which one is more promising and safe? Guka asks, specifically for girls? Is programming a good option for girls, or are there any obstacles for women going into technology essentially? And Christina wants to know, is it better to go, deeper into a particular major or program, or should they study something completely different and new? For example, I got my master's degree in global technology and development, which is a completely interdisciplinary and new area of study that many people have not traditionally gotten their degrees in.
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Here's the answer to that. And I'm using real life examples. I have three kids. I have a 27-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And I thought I was smart and slick by just having one at a time, thinking that I'd be able to manage that. And now they're all in the house at the same time, driving me insane. But that's a personal problem. When my 27-year-old was in high school and she was going to go to college, she said, I think I'm going to be a business major and study marketing. And I was surprised by that. I'm like, what? Why? Because this kid had been making movies since she was 5 years old. She had like 100 movies that she has made on different video cameras and editing from 5 years old. She's like, because I think that's where the jobs are, right? I can find a job. And I said, nope, not paying for that. I was one of those weird parents that said, if you go and be a film major and study arts and film, I'll pay for that. And parents never do that, right? It's usually the opposite. If a student says, I want to be an actor, they're like, no, you need to be a business major. I was the opposite, because this kid had been making movies since she was 5 years old. So she went, got a degree in film, and now she's the youngest editor at the internal marketing group at CNN. And when you see the upfronts, when advertisers come in and companies and a media company like CNN presents to the advertisers what their goals are going to be for the year, so that they can convince those advertisers to advertise on their channel, the video, the 3-minute video that people watch for literally billions of dollars, is the video that my daughter makes, right? Unbelievably talented. That's what major she should have been. Not which one is the best job or which one has the most promising career. It's the things that I knew she was passionate about. She got scared because there are no help wanted ads for director of motion picture. There are no help wanted ads for creative geniuses in editing, right? Those are not things that are available. So she had to be good at what she did. And then her career has been, she could leave tomorrow and work anywhere with those skills in videography. And it's really hard to sit and edit video for 16 hours a day if you're not passionate about it. And she is unbelievably passionate. I won't let her edit my videos because they're too professional. I can't meet that quality. So she would have to edit all of them. So that's her. Now, my 19-year-old came to me and said, same situation, and said, I think I'm going to be a political science major. And I said, political science? You don't even know who the governor is. No, you're not going to be a political science major. Because here's a kid who had every opportunity to engage in politics through his life. I know everybody in Arizona, right? The governor and I text each other. The mayor comes over for dinner. Like I am in the political space, and he could have done work with any of these politicians his whole life, but he wasn't interested. That's not where his passion was. His passions are in teaching people. He just doesn't know it yet. He's going to be an educator. So my advice is, either through the people who know you best or through some self-awareness and self-evaluation and self-assessments, find the things that drive you and the passions that you have, and then find a major that does that. Because if you just look for majors where the best jobs are, you're going to be a miserable person. So yes, there's lots of programming jobs. But if you can't sit at a laptop or a computer with giant headphones on and code for 12, 13, 14 hours a day, and you don't find that joyful, then you're going to be miserable. So I would say focus on your passions and your skills and the things that you want to develop, and then go major in that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Jaime, so much. This has been a very inspirational time with you. We appreciate you for your time. I mean, there are a lot of takeaways for the youth of Kazakhstan here. You've talked about the importance of finding your passion, as you just mentioned, and using that as your driver throughout your career, but also upping your skills, right? So making sure that you're ready with the skills for the current jobs, for the future jobs that haven't even been created. And as we know, a lot of jobs are going to be replaced and automated through technology. So as you mentioned at the beginning of our time together today, the importance of those social and human relation skills that are very hard for computers to replace. Also, yep, the importance of networks and mentors, and having that mindset of I'm going to do it. And even if everyone around you thinks it's impossible, of just doing that. So thank you for this invaluable time. Do you have any last words of wisdom for the audience?
I think that the most important thing that you can figure out during this time is who you are. And I wish that I had that opportunity when I was your age, because when I do an assessment now of like one of those like strength finders or personality assessments, I do them now and I see what my skills are and I see where I'm good. I'm like, oh man, I wish I knew this when I was 20, because I probably would have done things differently. So I would spend time understanding who you are. And everyone has to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I can't get to 1 million subscribers unless you guys subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then get 5 of your friends to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So make sure you do that.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely subscribe. I'm already a subscriber. If you haven't subscribed, he's very funny to watch. So he has a lot of funny humor in there, as you can see here today. So I encourage you to stay connected with Jaime. Also, for those of you watching who are high school students and young professionals, college students, Narxoz University definitely invites you to connect with us. We always have open arms of ways to connect, collaborate. Again, we're all about preparing our students and community for this next generation of globalization and technologically advanced everything, right? So we want to build our networks that way. And so we invite you to connect. We hope that many of the high school students out there who are really ambitious and wanting to be change makers in Kazakhstan join us at Narxoz University in Almaty. And we look forward to hopefully inviting you in person one day, Jaime, to come visit Kazakhstan.
Would love to.
Yeah, the Kazakhstani people are extremely hospitable and gracious, and you'd have a great time.
Yeah, I'm in. Let me know when.
All right, great. We'll treat you to the famous tea that they have here, maybe some horse milk, some fermented wheat drink, some camel milk, and the famous bishbarmak is the national dish. It's horse meat.
Okay, I take all of that back.
That's the first reaction of every American, but let me tell you, the food here is amazing.
I will try anything once, so I'm in.
Good. Well, I'm a vegan and I'm doing great in Kazakhstan and I enjoy the food, so I'm sure you will too.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your day. And thanks everybody for tuning in.